Hello, everybody. On behalf of the Norwegian Ski Federation, I would like to welcome you all to this webinar. My name is Britt Baldesor, and I am the Development Manager of the Norwegian Ski Federation Cross Country. Today, the themes of the seminar is Teknikktrening. What are the differences and similarities to how we practice Teknikktrening in the US, Italy, and Norway? A little fun fact first. At this webinar today, we are registered 244 participants from 28 different nations. It is so great that so many coaches from so many nations are interested in this webinar. I will start with some information before introducing the panels. As usual, our webinar, we have a Q&A down in the line below. Use that to ask questions to the panel. You can write all the time while listening without interrupting. So use Q&A instead of the chat. We are using Zoom as a platform, and this webinar has had some unwanted guests. They have hacked into this webinar in Zoom and showed bad pictures. If that happened, we will immediately shut down. If that happened, just wait 5 minutes before you try to log in again. We are still having, if we're still having unwanted guests, we have to end this seminar. We hope this will not happen today. So, to the panel. First, I want to thank Per Elias Kalfoss, who helped us with the technical. So, if I get problem, he take over. Per Elias, who is responsible for cross-country education, will also say something about the official educational model in the Ski Federation. Then over to our panelists. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Brian Fish, cross-country development coach in the US ski and snowboard. Francesco Semenzato, national coach, Italy, and Monica Køra, coach for Equinor National Junior Team, Norway. Monica, will you take over this seminar?
Yes, I will, Britt. Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction and welcome to everyone. We are so excited that we have people from all over the world joining us here on this webinar tonight. And we are also so lucky to have a coach from the United States of America and a coach from Italy that will share with us their knowledge, their thoughts, and philosophy on Teknikktrening. So first tonight, we will head over to the US, and Brian will share with us his thoughts on Teknikktrening. When we first met Brian 2 years ago at the Equinor Junior International Camp at Sjusjøen, prior to that camp, there was some clips on YouTube, super cool clips of athletes doing something on a challenging course, and we heard that it was called agility training. That was new to us, but you were pretty good at it. So prior to that camp, we challenged you to share with us to create a course like that for all of our athletes to be able to try what you have been working on for years. So with us tonight, Brian from the US, we will head over to you, and we are excited to hear more about this.
Thanks, Monica. Really excited to be part of this. And yeah, I wanna start by saying this is one of the things that we work on Teknikk. It is somewhat unique, but I just want to be clear to everyone that this is one of the many things that we use. To start out, I'd like to actually share a video to make sure that everybody knows that this is science that we basically steal from other sports. It's used in a variety of other activities from USA track and field, USA hockey, soccer, all across the world. So I'm going to start with a short 20-second video of NHL hockey. So to make sure. Just going to share screen. Can everybody see my screen?
We can see it.
Okay. I'm going to go right into a video that might be a little more familiar to us cross-country skiers.
I'm from Norway. Andy Newell from Shasbury, Vermont, USA.
Feels like 100 years.
I am the world record holder in the 100 pounds.
Okay, I just wanted to use those videos to just set a tone in what is in science known as constraint-led approach to motor learning. And really what the intent is to create an environment where you narrow the field and increase the technical and tactical demands so that it becomes more challenging than the arena of competition, so that when we get to the arena of competition, we're actually more prepared to be successful in competition. To set the foundation, we've really looked at athleticism and trying to improve the athleticism of our athletes in cross-country skiing. In the past, we've had athletes that struggled with good movement and motor skill and really focused more on the heart and lungs and doing a lot of volume of training, but maybe didn't really focus on the quality of movement. So we've actually focused a great deal on skill acquisition, and that all starts with general mechanics. So when we talk about athleticism, we talk about fluid, concise, relaxed movement execution. Movement execution cannot be measured in hours. It's a quality of excellence, and so it's a little bit more challenging to quantify, but equally important than just pure training volume. You need to be able to have good skill and movement. And when we talk about skill acquisition, it's really difficult to separate between speed of movement, technique, and strength. So we look at all these pieces kind of together. And so what we're trying to do is create good movement, be fast, technically sound, and strong all together. And we do that by creating what we call a large toolbox of movements. So we just try to get our athletes moving in a lot of different activities, both off skis and on skis. The simple term of it that we use in the United States is games approach, but the scientific terms is constraint-led approach. So again, it's constraining or creating and shaping an environment, starting by maybe if we want to work on weight transfer, like this picture has with the two athletes head-to-head doing slalom. What we're not saying, okay, we're working on weight transfer. We're just going to put them and constrain an environment where it creates a higher demand of weight transfer. Then what we do is, secondly, we provide what's called focus. We give them cues, and we use the term Woodenisms. This is for the American coach Charles Wooden, the basketball coach, and he just used short, actionable cues like drive your hand or shift your knee. So something that the athlete can use that's very actionable while they're moving. And then third, what we do is we create an enhanced environment, which is what this picture with the roller skiers, where we go head to head or mix the athletes together to increase a technical and tactical demand. So not only do they have to move themselves, but they have to read the environment so that they know how the other athletes are moving around them. So again, I want to be clear, this is one concept we use. We use it at all ages and all levels. For our youth athletes, what we do is generally create different skills, like one at a time. With our stronger juniors, we'll put these activities in series, like we'll have them go one after another, and we'll also do it in a competition environment. And with our elite athletes, what we actually do is use them as warm-ups. So when they start a warm-up, for example, they're going to do skate intervals one day. We're going to use it as what we call a mindful warm-up. What we're trying to do is set the neural pathways. So we're going to add some skill acquisition demands in the warm-up so it cues their brain to fire the right motor units when they go out and do their interval set. So that's kind of the general way that we utilize these sorts of activities. So what we're really trying to do is enhance the environment to make it an optimal learning environment for the athletes. It's athlete empowered. So we're trying to do less talk and more action. So again, we're not talking them through every single piece. We're allowing them to kind of learn through action themselves. And we feel that's a better way to learn, more intrinsic, more internal, and focused on the feel of movement versus having coaches tell them what they need to do. So it's really high challenge, and then high nurture means just it's highly supported by the coaches. So we really create a high technical demand, and then we provide focus to that through coaching. Practice makes permanent. We use that term often. Opposite of, practice makes perfect. It doesn't. Practice makes permanent. And so quality of movement has to do with, if you want to execute it well, that will make for success. But if you also are ingraining bad movement patterns, those are really hard to break. So these examples of pictures are all track and field, US track and field activities that we've adapted to cross-country skiing. And I think it goes without saying that culture is important. And we've really tried to boil down our ski culture in the United States into 3 major steps. Number 1, developing a passion for outdoor endurance. Not just cross-country skiing, but just being outdoors and allowing our athletes to do a lot of different activities like cycling, running, hiking, and then having them choose their choice to make it into the culture of training. That really means year-round training. And then finally, the culture of performance. And how we differentiate the difference between training and performance is simply the quality of execution and a focus on movement execution. So it's about doing things better, not always more. Certainly our World Cup athletes are training a lot, but it's about the quality and detail that really makes the difference. And then my last slide is simply that we really want to phrase and frame competition appropriate in a very positive environment. We try to do a lot of these activities, these quote unquote games approach, more head to head with the athletes, and it certainly creates competition, but we want to do it in a friendly way, and important to have the athletes and coaches understand that they're developing a rich learning environment when they do that. So if the athletes are always just learning by themselves, they're only getting one step of that. They need to be able to do it within a tight group. And that's all I have. I will hand this back over.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's really interesting to listen to how you work on this in the US. And I remember you told me earlier that there's been a shift towards this type of work in recent years. And I do think we have a lot to learn from you on that. I know for a fact that we do in Norway, and I'm sure other nations as well. And by seeing the way US skiing has developed recent years, I think there's something to this. I think this is creating results.
Yeah, and again, these are concepts that are widely used, and all we're doing is adapting them to cross-country skiing from a variety of different nations. Brazilian futsal is another perfect example of this, and yeah, we've found success with this as one of our approaches to learning technique.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm sure there will be questions for you towards the end, but we will leave those towards the end of the webinar. But do remember, all attendees here tonight, to write in questions on the Q&A. And then we'll go over to Italy. We are so lucky to have Francesco with us here tonight. He's been a coach at a high level in Italy for many years, and he has a lot of experience in technique training. And I know that one thing that's important to you, Francesco, that is to make the athletes feel, to make them try, and to help assist them developing through asking them the right type of questions. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Hi to everybody. I'm Francesco from Italy, and I training for a while, for some years, junior teams. And from my experience, I've seen that for sure Italy is different from Norway and maybe from USA. For people who practice cross country and the attention for cross country, but in the last years with the other trainer we share a method to practice Teknikk, and then we try to develop it. We think that it's important, and it's important that the athletes feel what they are doing. Sometimes they came from different part of region and club, but we still try to make a uniform meaning of what they are doing. And I will present something, but this is my experience in the last 8 years. I work with the under 20, so not really high level athletes. I will share with you some things. Okay. Okay. This is my presentation, but one thing that it's important at the beginning when you work with athletes, in my opinion, is try to teach, to ask them why to do technique, try to give them a meaning about this work. Sometimes they don't like so much, they prefer do other things, but the answer I try to give them is this, that it's important to do technique because being fast, spending less energy is really important for the cross country of today. Lot of race one next to the other, so win and then spend too much, it's important, but it's important also that you have energy for the day of tomorrow, the day of 3 days later, because now the competition are one next to the other. Then it's important the awareness and expertise with respect to what the athletes does during the moment. So this means that they have to understand what they are doing. Sometimes they move, but they don't really know what they are doing, because they repeat a lot of time the same things, but they really don't know perfect why they are doing that things or the other. And then you have to think that sometimes they don't like some part of the technique. We have 3 techniques: classic, skating, downhill, but especially young guys have some of the 3 techniques that are not so good. So when you give them the opportunity to try downhill, maybe they don't like so much, and experiment that and try to convince them that it's important to improve the technique there. In each technique, we have at least 5 movements, and this means that the cross country is really high level technique to express. One other important thing is to uniform in the national team. We try to uniform the language and the knowledge about technique, because they came from different parts, and then they speak about the same things in a different way. And it's important also, especially in our sports, that they are concentrated during some session, because sometimes they go outside just to ski, just to run. But it's important, as Brian said, that the mind is there, or what in what they are doing. And another things after the camp I like to do is to give them homework about technique, because they have to do by themselves. Also because only the repetition give the opportunity to give an automatism of the movement. These are some things I am used to do especially in the camp, but also in the program at home. That I used to do at least 3 technical sessions a week. And I don't forget downhill, because most of them have some problem. Women, special women, I work with women, they have problem with downhill. And also with ski roll, we try to do by progression different things to get used to not be afraid, but be relaxed in the downhill. Another thing I'm used to do is sharing a goal with the athletes before the session. So don't go there and tell, okay, now we will do this, but share with them what will be the goal of the session. Program the session and program also some exercise. So when I go and I want to work about technique, I have in the mind some things to propose. I prefer to work with the whole group than work with an individual athletes. I've seen that especially with young divide guys and work with one, it doesn't give the same results. Work together means that maybe the best shows the moment. Maybe he gives them advice. So they help each other. And this is really good also to grow up, because when one athlete teach to another, this means that he knows and he has the information. I agree with Brian. I have seen a lot of video with ski roll. In my opinion, ski roll is a great way to increase technique. During the summer, we have warm, we have time to stay there, to speak, to relax also after some exercise. During the winter is really difficult. For sure, especially in classic technique, there will be some differences between skiing, but I think that if we give the right goal, it's possible to develop a technique during the summer with ski roll, and I use a lot. As a method, I don't like to give them the movement to do and stop, but I prefer to give them some problem to solve. So what is better, to skis with the upper part of body up, down, using in this way the arms, or in the other? This is a good way to improve the attention and improve their feeling of what they are doing. So I prefer to ask questions than give answer, and I expect from them the answer. I allow athletes to propose technical exercise, especially the girls and the athletes who likes to do that, or they likes to improve. they have a lot of fantasy and creativity to improve the exercise. Affect athletes to improve technique and not oblige them. I ask always them, do you want to change? Do you think that to change it will give you some advice? Or if you don't want, because change from one movement to another movement, it's really hard work. So they have to be convinced. If they're not convinced and that they feel obliged, the work is not going on. I used to do technique in a different intensity, L1, L2 at the beginning to try new exercise, but also L3, because L3 it's an intensity that it's comfortable to control the moment. You are not going so slowly, but you're still pushing, but you can control the moment. You can control arms, legs, feeling. And you can get also organic work, because sometimes in Italy we think if you are doing a technical session, you're not working. It's not true. From the organization of the session, you can also work and give a organic improvement during a technical session. We use a lot movement simulation without equipment, maybe before the strength or after the strength, before to go to run. We just stop and try to simulate the movement, just to think in which moment you have the pressure in that part, in the other. For sure, use video, photo, quiz game, allow athletes to give themselves evaluation. So self-estimate and give valuation one to each other, because this means that they work with the eyes and that they understand the moment. And about quiz examples, I like to do video. Then when we are outside the training, we put the photo on and we make quiz games about which is the best position of the leg, what are the sensation in that position, what the sensation of the feet, of the leg. So and it's funny because they game. Sometimes I do some games also when we are doing technical exercise. I divided in two teams and we try to give points to the best team. This because sometimes it's boring for some athletes. Okay, last one, and tip for trainers. In my opinion, it's important to have clear and simple basic principles about the moments of cross country. So not make too much confused, but really simple way to make understand technical moment. Which way you slide, which way you push, in which way the pulls are better in that moment or in the other. And in my opinion, trainers should have a sufficient set of teaching exercise to develop the fundamentals. This means that when I want to make you feel something, I have to give you some exercise specific for that, in which you can move and feel that part that maybe you don't find so comfortable. And I think that it's important for a trainer to participate to the training session. So put on the ski roll, put on the skis, and stay with the athletes and try with the athletes, because sometimes you don't feel, you're not able to feel the same, or they can feel something more than you. But if you are with the ski roll with them, it's much more easy to transfer the information and also the passion about technician. I think that it's important to share with the other trainers the fundamentals and the exercise to develop the skills, because athletes change trainers. Athletes to improve technician should have more information, and information from different side. And it's important that a trainer give each other new information about new exercise, about new meaning to do, and develop skills and technical moment. And then consider that each moment we have as an adaptation according to the situation. So we can't teach only one way to do diagonal, one way to double pulling, one way to move in the uphill or run, because things changed. So it's important that we give athletes the right information and the right opportunity to change things in the same moment in different in different situations. So don't close the athletes only in one movement about that things, but try to make him feel that there is the run of Kleibo and the long slide of Bolshunov, for example. And inside the two part, just a small and difference between going from one side to the other. And then consider that learning is a senso-perceptive experience. If an athlete doesn't feel what he's doing, it's difficult he learns something. And sometimes I ask, what you feel when you use the pulse in this way or in that way? But I don't know. That's a problem. That's a problem, because to change, you need to feel. You need to know what you are using. And if you are not able to understand, to feel, this will be a really difficult problem. Sometimes I use to extreme the bad movement to make them feel that is not efficient, because I use the extreme way to make them feel, especially guys and athletes who are not able to feel what they are doing. Okay, I feel. I thank you for your attention, and sorry for my English that is so. Okay.
Thank you so much, Francesco. That was great. It's really interesting to hear the different perspectives here, and from two major nations within cross-country skiing. And it seems to me that what's important to you is to really include the athletes by asking them questions, making them feel, making them think, and also including them in the planning of training. Really push them to be creative. And is that right?
Yes, I think that's important, because sometimes they are used only to listen and to receive information. I would like that the new athletes are able to think and able to organize the session, organize the work. This means that they are inside the work, and they like also, because if I do something that I create, maybe I do it with more passion, with more attention.
That's right. Thank you so much, Francesco. And there's a comment down here in the chat that said that your English is just fine, and I agree. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you for the support.
So before we go over to questions, we're gonna head back to Norway, and I will present my thoughts on technique training and how we work with the junior national team in Norway. But before I go into that, Per Elias and Britt, they will share with us about the coach program in Norway, the coach technique program that we have in the federation.
Yeah, we will do that. Per Elias is there. Technical development. So we will go to the education program quite fast. So we have in what we call in Norwegian the first level. Can you change, Per Elias, to the next one? Next slide, Per Elias. Ooh. Per Elias, can you make the next slide? Ah, thank you. We have this called Grasrottrener. It's it's the level for the start program before the official training course, and it's aimed for parents and trainer on ski. We have made this course because the course program is quite heavy because it's a lot of hours. So we have made a course that is quite easy for a lot of people to take. It's only take 4 hours out and maybe 3 or 4 hours inside in the e-learning. The primary target group is young people and adults who wants to work with the create skiing in a ski training, and it's possible. It's important that it's a positive and enthusiastic way. And we are so lucky that Marit Bjørgen is our ambassador for Grasrottrener, and she traveling around in the whole country and being together with us for this training course. And I think this is a good way to just learn parents how to start to work on skis. Okay, Per-Elias, your turn.
Thank you, Britt. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I have a little bit problems here, so maybe you have to stop the presentation afterwards, but let's see. Hello, everyone. I will just try to explain a little bit of how we work with the coaches education in Norway for building up this technique for cross-country skiing. We have first level coaches, which coaches the kids between 6 to 12 years old. And if I can say, the main focus is very much like Brian's and also Francesco's. It's to kind of create a laboratorium, not an auditorium. Create the environment so it gives space for learning, and the coaches should know the basic techniques for cross-country skiing. That's one of our learning goals, to be able to kind of facilitate the training so that the kids can experience and learn these techniques themselves. The coaches should be able to facilitate training to create a natural development of the basic techniques. So we often just create bumps and portals and things to go through. And as an example, if we want to learn the kids to go uphill, maybe we build a ski jump or a bump so they are motivated to go around and round and kind of learn that skills. And we think, of course, the repetition and ongoing practice with activity is really important. So it's also important for us to kind of give these coaches the basic competence about the balance, the rhythm, the timing, the coordination that has to be there to kind of be able to build up a good skiing technique. On the level 2 coach, where we have more like athletes between 13 to 16 years old, we are more focused also into how can the coaches create self-reflection among the athletes, and so that self can understand the technique. Very much like Francesco says, this feeling, this how can they kind of experience themselves and reflect on what they're doing. So the coaches should still know the basic techniques for cross-country skiing and be able to give objective feedback. But often, like also Francesco said, I think it's very nice if they can create a problem that they should solve instead of giving very much instruction. It's more like building up this education from inside of the athletes themselves. We also have more in the last years maybe moved over to more like also technical skills. Like I think the agility training from Brian is brilliant, where you kind of learn how to read the terrain, to know how to go to create speed in the tracks, and how to go over a knoll, or how to use the terrain to build speed. And it's your friend, not your an enemy, and try to use it for the best so you can get speed. and it's also important all the way to kind of have a understanding of the development stages of the athletes. So that's kind of the pillar stone in our education, to know when the athlete's mind is ready to kind of go further. And I think your Italian doctor Maria Montessori said something about the absorbent mind, Francesco. And I think to kind of stimulate the absorbent mind of the kids, and when the kids grow older, they are more able to reflect, and we can kind of give them more problems to solve, and that's really interesting to work with. And that's of course what we try to learn our coaches how to do. When you come to the top level, or 16 years and up, the self-reflection is of course very important still for the athletes, and also to understand their technique. And maybe here it's for the coaches, it becomes more important. You have to know kind of more specific skills. You can, the athletes will hopefully challenge you to kind of give feedback. How can I solve this? And you can have a good discussion with the athletes, maybe coaching them more than you did before, asking questions. How can you do this to kind of develop the technique further? The best technique is maybe very individual, and it's maybe the fastest you can move from A to B. And as far as we see it, it's like we don't know the best technique. We have never seen the best technique. Klæbo came up with a new technique. No one has seen it in the uphill. So the new technique is always in front of us, and we have to be open and let the athletes drive this project to find the best technique. And that's the goal of our coaches, to kind of facilitate so that our athletes can develop the technique even further. And on the top level, we kind of also bring in a bit more of this mechanical principles like biomechanics, kind of get the coaches to understand the main principles in how to make a push, how to make, all that stuff. And that also then we think help the athletes to know, the coaches to explain for the athletes if solutions. So I think that was my input, Monica, and I give it further to you, back to you again.
Thank you both, Britt and Per Elias. And I can say that I've been through the stages of this coaching program, and it's a great program to prepare coaches for helping athletes in the best way. So now I'll share a little bit on how we work with Teknikk on the junior national team in Norway. And do remember to write questions. And I also want to mention that there are a lot of Norwegians following this webinar. So if you want to type the question in Norwegian, feel free to do so, and I'll try to translate.
I think you have to help me to stop sharing my screen, Britt, if you are there, because something has stopped in my computer now. So,
okay,
if you like.
I will.
Sorry for that.
Try to go through and then stop share.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I will try to share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, we can see it.
So here's the team from last year, the Equinor junior national team. So with this group, they're 18, 19, 20 years old. We're at stage 3 of the coach program that Per Elias just shared with us. And it's all about developing the athlete's self-reflection. So as Francesco talked about, this is all about asking the right questions to foster their development. First, just some overriding principles when it comes to how we work on technique with this team. And it's really a lot about going back to basic. Every season when we start roll skiing or we get on snow and start skiing, we go back to basic, and it's a lot about imitation, simulation of the movements, and a lot of skiing without poles. To find the rhythm, to find the balance. This we do, I would say, every single session that is easy. We will drop our poles for about 5 to 10 minutes, and we'll do that a couple of times during the sessions. And the next principle is that we bring in specific strength training and mobility training, because there might be weaknesses or limitation that hinders the athletes to execute a proper technique. And then we have to get to the core of the problem and work on that. There might be that they're not strong enough, or they might not be flexible enough. So then we have to go in and work on that. And we focus specifically on that a lot during the spring and the summer. And then, as both Francesco and Brian have talked a lot about already, it is a lot about making the athletes explore, make them try, feel free to push them so that they fail sometimes, all to help them find their proper technique. So that's an important principle for us as well. And last one, Per Elias talked about different stages of the coaching program, and there might be more playing with the young kids, but we try to hold on to this also with the older athletes. Okay, so here's just an example of an athlete that has a task to work on activating her legs more while double poling. And I'll show you a quick clip. I hope you're able to see that okay. Her task here is to activate the legs more, and not only pulling through with her arms. So to work on that, we skip the poles, and to get forward, she has to activate her legs. So let's look at that. So she's moving forward by almost jumping by activating her legs, and that is a form, a helping exercise to make her understand that she needs to activate her legs more while double poling. That's just an example of an exercise that we might do. Another thing that is important to us in Norway is summer skiing. We go on camps either on the glacier, Sognefjellet, or we will go to the skiing tunnels in Torsby. That's where we've been with the junior team. We normally go there in June, and then in September or October with the team. And this is a time where we really focus on technique, and we get back to basic, we drop the poles, and focus on technique during this time. And to the reason why we do this, why we focus a lot on technique during the spring, the summer, and early fall. That is when we may want to make the changes, corrections, or adjustments to technique. And the reason for that is that we don't want reinvestment to happen closer to season. Because what we do know is that athletes go through different stages of motor learning. First, when they learn a movement, they are in the cognitive phase. And this is a phase where they have to think about a lot to execute the movement. And the movement might appear as less smooth during this stage. And it takes time, it takes practice to move on from this stage to the next. But if they put in the work, they will. And at the end, when they've put in a lot of work and practice, they will get to a stage where the movement has become automatic. And at this stage, they don't really have to think about what they're doing by executing the movement. And of course, this is where we want athletes to be while competing. But the challenge is when the athletes get to the first competitions of the year, there might be some nerves involved, they might be anxious about their performance. And when that appears, they might fall into this reinvestment where they start to overthink, which might bring them back to the cognitive phase of motor learning and the loss of flow of movement. And to try to avoid this to happen, we focus a lot on technique early on. And when we get closer to season start, we don't want to make any changes. We just want to work and make them confident that they have the proper technique to ski well. So the timing of technique training is important to us. Another thing that is important to us is teamwork, and teamwork in everything that we do, whether it comes to planning of training, strength training, or technique training. We work together as a team and to share experiences and knowledge and to really help each other develop a proper technique. This picture here, two of the athletes of the team this year, they work together on intervals. See how they move in the same way, and they're really able to learn from each other's strengths when it comes to different parts of the terrain. One might be stronger in the uphill, one might be stronger downhill, but then they see that and they can help each other. We also have specific sessions for this with the team, where we split the athletes up in groups and we make them basically coach each other. Then they share of their strengths, typically, what they're thinking about while executing a specific technique, and they give each other feedback, they look at each other and coach each other. And I've had a great experience. I feel like we learned a lot by doing so with the team. And the last part, as you can see the coach here on the side, is filming the athletes. And what we normally do after filming, we get together in groups or the team as a whole at nighttime, and we look at the technique together. And they are able to give each other feedback on what they see and help each other there by looking at the videos, and also when they get back in the tracks. Okay, and a little bit on feedback. I agree with Francesco, question-based. That's what we focused on. Help the athletes develop by asking the right questions and discuss technique, make them explore, make them feel, and make adjustments and learn by that. And I do think that we should let the athletes help us guide the development of skiing, of technique. And we have a perfect example of that in Norway with Klæbo. I am sure that when Klæbo first ran up the uphill as he does, that a lot of coaches might have questioned if that is an efficient way of skiing. But the people around him, his coaches, they let him explore this. They let him do it at practice and in competitions. And look where we are now. Every athlete wants to do that. So I really think that we should let the athletes explore and try and help, or let them guide the development of technique. Just a challenge, it might be a challenge. It's a great thing with a team in Norway that these athletes, they have several coaches. They have me on the national team, they have coaches at their schools, and they have coaches in their club teams. They may have parents, grandparents that help them. And that is a great thing, but it might also be a challenge when it comes to technique. Because as Francesco also mentioned, we don't have a universal language of technique. And that might be a challenge when we explain to athletes, because we might see different things and we might explain technical challenges in different ways. So how I try to solve that is at every camp when we get together, I always ask the athletes first, what are you working on, or what have you been working on with your coach at home since the last time we saw each other? And if they share with me that they are working on 2 or 3 different tasks, I will not add on a 4th, a 5th, and a 6th task. Then we will first look at that and work on that, and then maybe later on we'll get into the next challenge. So, and that is all about this issue of information overload. I do think that we have to be clear and concise when it comes to the language and how we explain technique to the athletes. And one way of doing that with the athletes, we use cues, as Brian mentioned, and trigger words. It is challenging to give a lot of feedback when you're at a practice, as we are here, and they flow by. But the use of trigger words that we discuss up front prior to a race or prior to a session, that we will be able to give to them during the session. Okay, I mentioned already that we use filming. We use this app called Dartfish. A lot of you might be familiar with that. And that is a great tool for us and gives us visual feedback and allow the athletes to see themselves and correct technique accordingly. But I do want to raise the question of timing of feedback when we use such apps, because it might be challenging if you have large groups and you're all focused on getting clips of all the athletes, and then you should try to give feedback at the same time. It might be a challenge. A solution to that might just be filming during the session and then analyze and look at the technique later on. But I do think we lose a value of training then. As coaches, I think we should be able to give immediate feedback at the session and let the athletes try to adjust accordingly. So that's just a question that I want to raise. I think it's a great tool, but I think we really have to think about when and how we use it. Another thing that has become really popular in Norway recent years is the use of treadmill. And this as well is a great tool. It is a great tool for athletes at a high level for the refinement of movements and for them to be able to look at themselves. As we can see in this picture, the athlete is able to look at himself on a screen and also in the mirror, and that will help him adjust his technique. But I do want to raise a question here too. I think there are pros and cons to the use of treadmills, and I think we should think about when, at what age we are introducing this to athletes. Athletes at high level, senior athletes and juniors at high level, yeah, maybe it is a helping tool, but I do also think that we lose something by using it. I don't think that we should ever replace sessions outside for younger athletes where they can fight head-on-head with peers, because that has different demands than what we will ever meet inside on a treadmill. It is this technical, tactical component that you will meet outside, where you have to read the terrain, you have to adjust the speed, adjust the technique accordingly, that you'll never be able to do on a treadmill. So we need to think about at what stage or what age we do introduce the use of treadmill to the athletes. Okay, that's it for me and how we work on technique with the junior team. Now we will, let's see, it is 9 o'clock. We have the time until 9:25 before we need to end this webinar. So I can see that there are some questions down here, but people feel free to ask questions. Okay, but the first question goes to you, Brian. And there's a question about how the US are able to spread agility training to the club levels. Are you able to do that, and how do you do it?
Yeah, it's the two main steps. I first need to explain that we are what we call a decentralized club-based model. What that means is that we are a very small staff with the US ski team and US ski and snowboard. So for example, at Junior World Ski Championships, of our 10 staff, only 2 of them are US ski team staff. The rest of us are coaches from the clubs. So that is true with all of our even national junior camps. So we have a ton of our junior coaches that are at the camps that are embedded in those projects. our club coaches. So we're using that information directly. We also have a system of regional camps as well as national junior camps, and we share that information at those camps. That's first and foremost. And then secondly, through our coaching education. And Per, thanks for providing that information. We have a similar coaching education system. However, it's not just age-based. It's also ability-based. What we found is that we do use long-term athletic development plans, but we use kind of like karate. You have to earn the right to go to the next step. So we look at it from a skill set as well as an age set. So those are the two ways that we implement it.
Thank you, Brian. And then there's a question here. I think that goes to all of us. What is the right age for children to start technique training on roller ski? Francesco, do you have any thoughts on that?
Okay, it's difficult to say for me, in my opinion, difficult to say a right age. I take the example of my son. I have a son that is 9 years old now, and she used the rollerblade, and now she's going really fast. And she started when she was 4 years old, and now she's really going fast. And she jumps and she shows a lot of skills. But for example, I have the other kids, Lucia, that she doesn't like, and now she's 6, and she tries sometimes. I don't think there is a right age. I think there is the interest about kids. I think that it should be good if trainer put the rollerblade, the monopattino, the skate there in the session with kids, and they go there and to experiment if they want. And then they try, but not to say, okay, 6 years, everybody with a rollerblade, 5 years, 4. I think that every kid has a moment in which he's interested about that. For sure, in my opinion, classic ski roll at the beginning are really heavy, are really difficult to move. I prefer thinking about some rollerblade, and something that is more easy, just to have the feeling of slide when they are really, really small. And then when they grow up and they have more strength, and then they can use also ski roll in classical style. But I think that the time that depends also from how they can manage and the ability of each kids and guy and small athletes.
Thank you, Francesco. Per-Elias, do you want to share your perspective on this?
I have problems all the time here with my computer, sorry, but I share the same perspective as Francesco. I think we can't say a specific age. It's the individual that has, like also Brian says, you have to kind of deserve it. You have to be able to do it. But I think in Norway, it's the kids are younger and younger when they start roller skiing. If I just look out what the practice is, and I think also the agility training has become really popular. So when you can more like play on parking spots and play around with the roller skis, it's maybe a possibility to start a bit earlier than also bringing them out in the roads and the traffical situation, which can be tough. So I don't know, but I don't think we have an age in Norway as well.
No, I think that's right, Per-Elias. Brian, do you have anything to add on that?
Not really. I agree entirely. And it should be the motivation of the athlete, and their curiosity should spark when they start to roller ski. But as Per was talking about with the agility, that was one of our initiatives too, is to engage. And I see a question about like skateboarding and snowboarding, and I can answer that basically that's our culture, you know, that's the cool thing to do. So we were trying to use it as a motivational tool to capture more kids to do it too. So not a set age, just when their curiosity drives it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we all agree upon that it's all about the motivation, and as long as the kids will ski where it's safe and not on the roads with cars, I think they're good to go as long as they are motivated for it. We do have another question here, which says, when pairing athletes for interval training, do you try and closely match athletes' technique styles or opposing styles? Any of you have thoughts on that? Let's go to Brian first, if you have any thoughts on it.
Could you repeat the question? I'm not quite seeing it.
Let me see. The question was,
oh yeah,
could you see it?
Yeah. We do both. See all the above. We want to pair our athletes together to, as you had said, Monica, about sharing each other's strengths. We also encourage our athletes to kind of think outside the box too. And I'll be candid. Some of our athletes are lesser interested than that, to change their style or to change things a little bit. But I think that's our opportunity to expand and to try new things. So we encourage adaptation, but also learn from our strengths.
Thank you. Francesco, do you have any thoughts on it?
Sorry, I had my microphone down. No, I agree with Brian. So no other things to say on, really.
No, and I would say the same in Norway. We pair them up to learn from each other's strengths and weaknesses. So I think we also do both in Norway. And then there is a question on treadmill. Do you assess the energy cost of different techniques during treadmill tests? Do you adjust your technique exercise based on that? So first, I think we have to ask both the US and Italy, do you use the treadmills both for technique sessions and testing? Brian, will you go first?
Sure. For better or worse, we've actually done less treadmill work. In the some areas, I should clarify that by saying some of our clubs are doing a lot more of it and some are doing less. We're focused more on doing treadmill work more in the club base because we're such a big nation. But when we get together as a national team camp, we're doing less treadmill work so that the athletes get an opportunity to train head to head. But absolutely, like what you're trying to do on an individual basis is try to assess what their current best is, efficiency, but that also has to be rated against how that is in a technical and tactical environment like a mass start, which is very different. So again, all the above.
What about you, Francesco? Do you use treadmills in Italy?
Okay, with the national team, we are using to test the athletes and to test the VO2 max, VO2 max, but not really to training. And we don't have so much treadmill, and they are also expensive to go inside. So club for sure not. Some regional club goes to test also athletes. This year's the A team made some experience about the training on the treadmill. just to see how much is expensive for one athlete or the other athlete, that technician, that intensity. And they have had some results that I think is good for high-level athletes, because you go in the specific of each athlete, and you have a number to watch and to think about. For young athletes, we don't use so much, except for the VO2 max, and only high-level athletes.
Yes, good. And I want to add on, it is the same in Norway. We might use the treadmill some for technique training, but for the juniors, we do no kind of testing on the treadmill. When we test VO2 max and so on, we do it on a running treadmill. So we don't use the treadmill a lot at all, only a few sessions, I would say, during the season. But we use that, and that is just for technique training. Okay, and here's a question that I think will go to me. It's about Helene Fossesholm and what advantages there are about her technique. What is special? I can answer that. She is a great technical skier for sure. And one of the things about her training, she's always, or since she was a little girl, also been a cyclist. And I think that her ability to really, be offensive downhill and to read the terrain and adjust her technique accordingly, I think she learned a lot from cycling. And she always been an athlete that played a lot. And when we do that on camps, even if we're out just an easy session, she will always tell us to sprint over the hilltops or around the curves, because she loves that kind of playing. And I think by doing so all of her life, I think that brings her to the skier she are today. And I can add on a fun fact from a race earlier this season at Beitostølen, when she was able to race against the senior. We had this GPS analysis for the athletes that could track their speed in different parts of the track, and she had the best times in the downhills. So that's really one of the advantages of her technique, that she's really good downhill and around the curves, and really technical, tactical talent. So let's see if there's any more questions coming in. Okay, there's one to Brian. Do you follow the dynamic system approach when creating exercises? Meaning, do you create a variety of perception differences in the right difficulty?
The short answer is yes. Whomever knows their science pretty well, but if you are really into reading the four principles, and Monica, you were talking about one was just basic motor learning principles, constraint-led approach principles, dynamic systems approach, which is this question. The answer is yes. And the last one is self-organizing principles, which is in just how geese fly, why they fly in a V. And I can break it down into two basic bullet points. Number one, we need to empower our athletes and put that power into the athletes, so create the environments that they can do the learning. So we're not over-coaching, because that creates dependence from the athletes to the coach. And then secondly, we can't break it down too segmented, or else our movements get mechanical. So all those principles basically boil down to those two main concepts.
Need to unmute. Thank you, Brian. Time is flying by, but I think we'll end up with one last question here that I think all of us should answer. There's a question about the role of parents and how to evolve in the growth of children. Then I would think it's about how parents can influence technique of children from an early age. Francesco, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sorry, I forget also the microphone. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, I think that parents has an important role, you know, about growing up kids and skiers. They have to be next to them, not to push, but to give them the opportunity to learn, and try to be able to do not expect it too much. Just wait, just be happy that the passion goes on the kids, because it's the problem here we have that usually cross-country skier came from a family of cross-country skier, and the parents make cross-country, the parents were athletes, and there is a big pressure about youngs that goes and have a race, but really to be next to improve them the passion, but not wait results or be unsatisfied of some moments of the work, you know. And in my opinion, it would be great if parents helps the club, go inside the club, go and helps the community of the club, drive the car, make a picnic, share the social moment of the club. And this is my opinion about parents, and important in my opinion that trainer give time to the parents, take them in meetings and speaks. This year we will work in this way, just to share with them which are the goals of the club and of the single trainer and of the group.
Thank you. Brian, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, the role of the parents is critical. It sets the tone, and you know, having their direct involvement and engagement is important in such a lifestyle type sport as cross-country skiing. However, there can be some dark sides of a parent if they're if it's their goals and not their children's goals. So there's definitely a line that needs to be drawn, that they're supportive and encouraging, but not overbearing or living their goals through their children.
Thank you. Per-Elias, do you want to add on something on that?
I think Brian and Francesco said pretty much what I had planned to say, but maybe if parents can look for variation, go to different spots, be supportive like Brian says, and also kind of the level of constraint, can we say that in English? That, like, don't push too much, but a little bit push need to be there, because that's maybe where the development happens if it's a bit difficult. But the kids should be happy and play, and I think the parents should play with them, and then it will be fun.
Thank you, Per-Elias. And yeah, I totally agree. I think it's all about that. It's about the motivation. Go with the kids, play with them, and set up courses like agility courses, like Brian has talked about, and just let them have fun and play. And I think they will find the inner motivation to become great skiers then. Okay, we are getting close to the end of the webinar. So I want to say thank you to Brian and Francesco for sharing your knowledge with us tonight. It was great having you on. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for everyone who attended the webinar. I really do hope this is the first out of many international webinars in the future. So I'll let Britt have the final word tonight. So thank you for tonight.
Yeah, sorry for some technical problems, but we have been over 250 persons in this webinar, so I think that maybe that's some of the reasons, but I will thank you very much to Brian, Francesco, and Monica for interesting and opening sharing, for your big knowledge that have been great to listening to, and to all your audience. It's been great to have you all in this webinar. So I hope that we will see you later also in another international webinar. Thank you and have a good evening.